The DTCC moves $3.8 quadrillion a year in notional value. If you've ever sold a stock here in the United States, the DTCC is the one who handles the settlement of that stock. Over the last several years, the DTCC has been moving towards blockchain infrastructure and settlement because we know that is the future. There are some connections between the DTCC, R3, and XRP that you just need to know if you are an XRP holder. I uncovered some new videos specifically from the DTCC, uncovering a lot of things that we need to discuss and talk about. I'm going to bring this full circle for you to have you really understand what's about to happen to our financial system and how you can take advantage of that information. Let's just start right here. The DTCC processes over $3.8 quadrillion in annual notional value. Their ION project states clearly, if a digital asset becomes sufficiently liquid, it can be used as collateral across their system. There are only two assets in the world fast and neutral enough: cash and XRP. Now, here is a panel with the DTCC. The gentleman here, this is Donald Donahue, and I will tell you who that is in just a second. That is a really good connection. This gentleman right here, he is the CEO of R3. Let me play this for you, and I'm gonna lay out a ton of stuff.
DTCC has been looking at this not quite as long as Lee's team, but over the last year, we've been exploring the technology, speaking to many of you, speaking to many vendors, third-party providers, industry associations, many experts, and we've determined a couple of different things peering through the hype and smoke. First, there's the ability to share information and let information flow is very powerful. The role that we play in certain infrastructures requires many firms across the industry to adhere to sets of standards, to upgrade versions of standards, and it's hard to get everyone on the same set of standards. It's hard to get everybody to look at data the same way, to interpret business rules the same way, and if you can eliminate a whole layer of requirements, if you can eliminate the requirement that everybody in the industry use the same exact database and the same exact version and the same exact business rules and the same exact stored procedures, if instead there's this new layer of technology that has the business rules embedded and that has the data information embedded and everyone is looking at that data in the same way, how powerful would that be? And how much simpler can it be to roll out a technology and roll out processing and eliminate the many upgrades and many coordinations that are necessary?
All right, now let me show you this. DTCC is actively moving parts of its equity and collateral infrastructure onto distributed ledger technology. But there's no public evidence that the DTCC and R3 have committed to using XRP. So I just want to set that out. It's not official, but I'm going to show you some information in a second. What DTCC is actually doing here is Project ION, equity settlement. DTCC has built a DLT-based alternative settlement platform for US equities on R3's enterprise Corda and put it into a live parallel production environment alongside the legacy systems. So the new rails are set up alongside of the old rails and they're going to run side by side until they figure out, hey, we don't need the old rails anymore. That should probably take a few years that you'll have these rails just in case something happens to the new rails. Settlement model, ION, is designed to support T+0, which is the trade and the settlement same day, as well as T+1 and T+2 as extended cycles, with the goal of improving efficiency and risk management while preserving DTCC's existing regulatory and resiliency standards. What assets are involved? Tokenized securities of collateral, not public crypto. DTCC's various pilots and platforms focus on tokenized versions of traditional assets, equities, treasuries, collateral, on permission DLT rather than using a volatile public cryptocurrency at the core of the settlement. And it does give us some examples here, but I'm not going to go through all of these. Here's a little history about R3 and XRP. Or Corda Settler originally showcased XRP in 2018. R3 introduced Corda Settler with a demo where off-ledger obligations could be settled in XRP. And at the time, XRP was described as the first and initially only supported crypto settlement option in the reference implementation. Later direction, subsequent commentary from R3 and the evolution of the ecosystem makes it clear that XRP was used as an example as a settler and was designed to be an asset agnostic, able to plug into multiple currencies and rails according to clients' needs. Now, I wanted to show you this. So this is Donald Donahue. If you're not familiar, Donald Donahue left the DTCC in 2015. He was the CEO of the DTCC and he went to work as an advisor at Ripple Labs basically as Project Ion was being developed. Let me play this.
I was in his position as the CEO of DTCC throughout the financial crisis of recent years. So however useful blockchain technologies may turn out to be, I've learned firsthand through the fires of 2007, 2008, 2009, that it is absolutely imperative to have transactions flowing through something that can be subjected to central management, preserving the ability to intervene in that flow, to facilitate it, and to protect it where necessary. When the pressures of the 2008 financial crisis repeat themselves, as at some point they unquestionably will, a processing infrastructure that operates completely on automatic without a central managing hand would drive the financial system straight off a cliff. Preserving a central managing hand as an essential design component has to be part of any implementation scheme.
Check this out. This is good. Ripple commercial.
So consensus is the way that the XRP ledger solves the double spend problem without proof of work. Kind of the problem is that we can all agree on which transactions are valid or invalid. The basic rules for a transaction are simple. They have to be properly signed. You can't send money you don't have. Those things are all not a problem. The problem is if, let's say, Alice has one XRP or one Bitcoin or $1, we want her to be able to send that to Bill if that's what she wants to do, and want her to be able to send that to Charlie if that's what she wants to do. But if she can do both, we have a huge problem. So somehow, even though both transactions are valid, we have to agree on which one of them we're going to put first so that we can agree that the second one is invalid. And so it's that problem of resolving conflicting transactions. Now, historically, that's been done by a bank. Like if I write a check, my bank either says I have the funds or I don't. And if I write two checks for the same money, they'll process one first and we'll all agree that the one the bank said was good is good. But we don't have a central authority. Bitcoin uses proof of work, Ripple doesn't.
What did Donald Donahue, former CEO of DTCC, now Ripple advisor, say the DTCC should never choose again?
It is absolutely imperative to have transactions flowing through something that can be subjected to central management.
So the former CEO of the DTCC, now advisor at Ripple, supports the very mechanism that Ripple was or has developed. The company supports the XRP consensus mechanism, the one right here. I just thought this was good. It's a little suspenseful, a little slow, but all good. No further questions. Okay, now how do we know that R3 is going to use XRP? What are the options R3 has? Well, look no further than your friendly neighborhood Jay Claver.
I can give you what you want here. I won't tread on anything that we're doing with them. So if you were to look up Crunchbase, you could look up R3 on Crunchbase. R3 is the company. Corda is the private permission blockchain that they use, smart contracts. If you were to look it up on Crunchbase, you would find that the initial investors in R3 were all of the investment banks. Citi, Goldman, BNY, Bank of America, JP Morgan, all of them. Okay. So if they were the people that really invested in the company, who do you think their largest supporters would be? Who do you think their contracts would be with? The investment banks. They also, along with Ripple, go out to other large institutions and countries and talk to them about stablecoins and CBDCs and what that would look like on their blockchain. Corda went the route of not having a native asset to settle transactions within their ecosystem. So it has the capability to utilize XRP or XDC to settle transactions, depending on whatever has the most liquidity and regulatory clarity. So you could assume which of those they might choose here in the US because of the lawsuit with Ripple and the regulatory clarity that XRP has.
It's the clip that kind of stutters. I do apologize.
Confident that they would likely use that as their settlement token. But that would only be outside of the trusted permissioned ecosystems, right? So the banks themselves, if they had a stable coin, they can settle inside that infrastructure without XRP, right? It's just intra-bank settlement. So Bank of America's got their own stable coin. They want to send money from one branch to another. Easy, instant, account funded, right? Now, if Bank of America wants to send money to Wells Fargo, and they also operate on Corda, they would use whatever settlement mechanism was attached to both those environments, which if XRP has legal clarity and enough liquidity in it, XRP is an excellent choice to be able to settle those transactions between those parties.
Okay, I got more for you. And here is some of those connections that he was just talking about. Here it is again. This is a more recent clip last month. This is October 2025.
Do you think R3 will use XDC or XRP? We worked with them on a project. We developed a POC with them for a company that we have. I can't talk about specifically what it was because we have an NDA in place. But before we signed the NDA, we talked to them and asked them which network should we build this to be interoperable with and settle through. And they said, well, we're not going to use anything that doesn't have legal clarity here in the US. That was their words. And so we said, you mean you have to use XRP? And they said, well, XDC doesn't have legal clarity here in the US, does it? So up to you. You know, they can settle through both of them, have partnerships. Internationally, that probably doesn't matter. But here domestic in the US and for the back end settlement of the stock market, it for sure matters. And if you want Project Ion to work and allow for instant settlement of the back end of the stock market when everything's collapsing and there's a global credit call, you better hope that they decide to use XRP.
Now, let's understand here, who's got all of these partnerships with some of these banks? I don't see XCC partner with Bank of America or BNY Mellon or any of these other giants that Jake just mentioned. So it sounds like in America, XRP would probably be the best choice since XDC was developed out of Singapore. And I don't think they're probably going to use something that was developed in Singapore for the US stock market settlement. That's just my personal feeling and my personal opinion. I just want to give that to you. And it says, it's no coincidence that XRP ETFs will be approved during Q4 when ISO 20022 will be implemented. It's likely that they are planning to inject liquidity into XRP to make it rise to certain levels so it can be used for a settlement mechanism. Now, if you take a look here, coin market cap, XRP is sitting at 132 billion in market cap. XDC market cap right now is at not even $1 billion. What is closer to them using it for settlement? Is it the asset that's below $1 billion in market cap, or is the asset that's already at 130 billion market cap probably the better choice? I will leave that with you. Now, trades must be affirmed to T+0 to settle at T+1 with State Street due to compressed timeline, regulatory requirements, and DTCC deadlines. This ensures timely settlement, reduced risk, enhances operational efficiency, and accommodates global time zone differences the shorter the settlement cycle. Let me play this.
But when you think about the affirmation process, it's really important that clients understand, especially our non-US clients who are participating in US assets, that automation is really key. The trades need to be affirmed by 9 p.m. Eastern time on T0 on trade date in order to guarantee settlement on T+1. That'll be difficult for anyone who's still in a manual environment in any way, especially if they're a non-US client trading in US assets or Canadian assets for that matter. Especially as they get closer and closer to that 9 p.m. cutoff, they're going to be having a harder time guaranteeing that they won't fail on T+1.
This is why you need 24/7 settlement. And now you often see a lot of DTCC announcements about Chainlink, but what Chainlink is doing and the settlement side are two different things. And I wanted to play this clip to show you the differences and what it's going to be a use of multiple systems here to make all of this work. Chainlink is very important to get information from the real world to the blockchain world and vice versa.
Chainlink, and 10 major financial institutions, including JP Morgan and Franklin Templeton, collaborated on a pilot program for institutions to bring price and rate data to blockchain, specifically
price and rate data to blockchain. That is what they're doing.
NAV data. So can you take us through how this collaboration all works and what exactly was the goal of this collaboration?
So I think this collaboration shows the trend towards fund tokenization because this data is a critical part of administering a fund on chain. And so it shows that all of these large institutions, including and the DTCC as well, are going this direction of basically putting more and more parts of a fund on chain. And that is a very important trend because the on-chain format for funds is a superior format in many ways. One way is that it conveys a lot more information to investors. Another way is that it's much more efficient and therefore the costs of operating funds go down. But generally what this is largely about is going down a path of fund tokenization and kind of doing that in an incremental way where you're putting different parts of the fund on chain. In this case, it was certain key pieces of data, but I think we'll go to subsequent stages that lead to kind of wide-scale, large-scale fund tokenization.
Remember, Chainlink is about data. XRP is about settlement. That is what we are focused on right here and right now. And you can go take a look. There are patents all over X that involve the DTCC. I've shown this multiple times, multiple videos. Here's kind of how they were filed, the priority, the numbers, all of that jazz leading to this, right? The DTCC patent. You have XLM and XRP. Do XLM and XRP make sense to pair next to this context? You know, this is just kind of showing all of these things here. Here is the actual patent with XRP, and Stellar XLM on the patent for the DTCC. Don't see XDC there, all right? I see XLM. Did I say XDC? XLM and XRP, excuse me. Now let me show you this, right? You've seen the information with the DTCC patent. This is all over X. If you want to take a look at this information and do some of your own searches, please do. Here is a little bit more information on it. Here is kind of how all of the events of all of this, when it was filed, when it was renewed, everything is here. And then this is the patent. Now, looking at it this way is a little bit difficult, so I got it here for you. Here it is, DTCC patent. Here is Stellar, and here is XRP. I don't see XCC in this patent. DTCC exploring DLT for collateral and clearing is one of the strongest macro signals for assets like XRP. If the world's largest settlement engine transitions to tokenized collateral, the next big question becomes what neutral bridge asset can bridge liquidity across all tokenized markets? And then of course, DTCC is plugged in now with Hidden Road. That's also a great connection. And then if XRP ends up settling the stock market here, you're talking about a ridiculous price for XRP. All right, let me just show you, $38,000 per token. This is if XRP was to settle all of it, okay? Now, if XRP is used to settle 50%, you're talking about a $19,000 XRP. If XRP was used to settle 25%, you're talking about a $9,500. Obviously, if XRP was used to settle 12.5%, you'd be looking at about $4,000 to $5,000 per token. This is one avenue that Ripple is exploring many. This is not including supply shocks and all of that other stuff. This is why people believe XRP could be a 5-digit token over time, right? And then you'd look at who has been invited to some of these meetings. You have the DTCC here. You have the IMF, right? You have Ripple here. You have Circle. You have a bunch of other people. Here's Cas Laurens. Here's Chainlink. And then you look at why the founder of ARKX said something so crazy about $30 to $50 trillion on the XRP ledger by ARKX in the next few years.
30 to 50 trillion, all on XRP, all trading on ARKX.
Here we go.
Find my original projections, but the total market is 1.4 quadrillion, everything that's ever out there. And if you start looking across any of those asset classes, they're all starting to move on chain already. And the ease with which we've seen people interested in money market funds, tokenized treasuries, and those types of instruments, the support for stable coins, when you're talking about replacing cash, when I see DTCC, Euroclear, Clearstream, it only takes one of them to flip onto natively digital, and that's trillions of assets on its own that move. So, tens of trillions, I think we could see. And bearing in mind it's 1.4 quadrillion, this is still a tiny slice of a huge market. 30 to 50 trillion, all on XRP, all trading on ARKX.
Here we go, $50 trillion.
Remember, this is just the US system. The UK and the EU and Japan and every other country is upgrading their infrastructure too. So the question really becomes, what role could XRP play in those systems as well? This is why my whole life revolves around this right now. This is what I am meant to do, to give you this information so you can be properly educated on what's to come. And hopefully you can ride this roller coaster with me. And hopefully we'll get to the end here and we will be right about a lot of this. Now, guys, if you got any value from this, please hit like. I didn't ask to the very end here. I put a lot of time and energy into making this video possible, and your likes do help the video get in front of more people. I hope you enjoyed this kind of full round of how I think this is going to go. And I hope this really helps educate you on what the possibilities here are for the crypto market, especially for XRP. This is why the smile on my face never stops. Let's get it together. I'm so happy you're with me. I'm Crypto Sensei.